If I do say so myself, today's episode of the podcast is brilliant. I am chatting to the wonderful Wendy Hill all about how to improve your focus and energy. We discuss the impact of sugar and caffeine on energy levels, the importance of building healthy habits gradually, and how Wendy's work has been game-changing for me personally over the last 3 years. Wendy also shares her expert opinion on why you shouldn't calorie count, even if you're looking to lose weight. I know, right? Mind blown. I am so excited for you to listen to this episode because I can't wait for Wendy's knowledge to benefit you as much as it has benefited me over the last few years. Not convinced? Let me tell you a little bit more about who Wendy is and what makes her so qualified to talk about this. Wendy is a qualified nutritional therapist, Nutrigenomics Practitioner, speaker, health coach, and yoga teacher. With a wealth of expertise in these fields, she is an engaging speaker, radio show guest, and trusted authority by government bodies to deliver presentations to groups on topics including health, longevity, and menopause. Wendy is the host of the weekly podcast Fab Female Nutrition, offering valuable insights and practical advice to help women gain confidence and better understand how to nourish their bodies. Her popular group programs empower women to take control of their hormones, understand their body's needs, and make sustainable changes to their lifestyle. Wendy's mission gives women a sense of confidence and well-being in all women, helping them recognise that they deserve to feel amazing every day. So, before we dive in to hear everything Wendy has to say, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to another episode of Show Up and Be Heard, the podcast that exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becky McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. If you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening because you are in the right place. To be the first to find out when new episodes go live and to get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Hi Wendy, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Becky. How are you?
I am good, thank you. And I am super excited to chat to you today, partly because I love chatting to you. I think we could talk hours about anything. But also just because I've known you for about, God, what will it be? About 3 years now, maybe?
It feels like longer, but I think it is only about 3 years, yeah?
Yeah, so you're probably right. And I feel like I've been on a massive journey with you in terms of like my food, my energy, my sleep, all that kind of stuff. And I say I've been on a massive journey. I don't know how much further ahead I am, but I'm definitely further ahead.
You are definitely further ahead.
So I'm really looking forward to chatting because what I've always loved about you is how sort of relatable you are and how not necessarily, well, no, you are understanding, but that it's not like a one size fits all and you actually take different people into account, which is why I asked you to come on the podcast because I think people can learn so much from you.
Oh, thank you. And I think this is one of the problems with nutrition is everyone thinks that it's going to be really, really hard. And they think that I'm going to be like really frowning on them if they don't have salads and quinoa every day. And actually, I just want to make it real. And we have these conversations all the time and I'm like, well, what little thing can you change? How can we just make what works for you a little bit better? And hopefully that's part of your journey now is letting go a little bit of that perfectionism and realising that if I just make a slightly better decision for my lunch, it's a better decision, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I always say about you. I feel like whenever I've chatted to you, you must come off like, I don't know, the phone or a call or go into a different room, scream. Because if you can make it work for me, you can make it work for anybody. Partly because, I mean, obviously, you know, I have a young family and all that kind of stuff, but also just because my diet has never, and like my whole approach to everything has never been particularly brilliant. So genuinely, if like, that's why I asked you to come on, because genuinely I do believe you've made such a massive difference to me, and I do feel like if you can do it with me, you can do it with anybody. So yeah, I'm just really looking forward to like hearing what you're going to say today, because as well as I've had you know, we've had Instagram lives, haven't we? We've just had
Yes.
personal chats. I'm in your memberships. I've been on coaching calls with you. I'm in your free groups. So I hear you talk all the time. And I listen to your podcast a lot. But every time I listen to you, I'm like, I either re-inspires me with something that I already know, or I learn something different that I don't know whether I've forgotten it from something you've said before. So I feel like today, which is a good time for me, because as of yesterday, I restarted again with a like, right, let's do this. I feel like it will re-inspire me, and I'm almost confident I will learn something new as well.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice. And that's the key, I think, is to just, if you take one thing, if everyone listening today takes one thing away that they're going to change, that's all I want, because each time that one little tiny change, they're all cumulative, aren't they? They hold the 1% club, you know, just one little change makes a big difference.
Yes, definitely. And what we're going to be focusing on today is, or the sort of general theme of what we're going to be talking about is how to improve your focus and your energy, which I think everybody needs a bit of, as well as a little bit about what you've learned from running a free online community, because you do have an incredible free online community, which we'll chat about later.
Cool.
So a little bit in terms of the business perspective, I suppose, what you've learned in terms of that, but also just a bit about your free community, because it is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
But before we do any of that,
Okay.
do you want to tell us a little bit about your story, like sort of how you became a business owner? Did you always want to be one? Like, what's your story about sort of how you came to do what you're doing now?
What I'm doing now. So I don't know if you know this, Becky, but I've never had a real job. I literally, the only real job I've ever had was part-time jobs when I was studying. So I joined my family business at 18 when I left sixth form. And so I've never been properly employed, I suppose. And I'm definitely unemployable. It was in the building trade, grew that business, a really lovely, quite a substantial business. But in my mid-40s, I now know with all my training, in my early 40s, I hit perimenopause with a bang, but I didn't know that's what it was at the time. And we didn't really talk about perimenopause at the time. By my mid-40s, I'd totally fallen out of love with the business, and it was killing me, if I'm honest. I think I was, steps away from a nervous breakdown. I was so close to it. I realised now, long hours, super, super stressful. Running it with my brother, it was me and my brother running the company. We weren't getting on. We'd kind of changed directions. And like I said, and I know I was in perimenopause as well. So all of these things were adding to my sort of issues. And I was fortunate enough to be able to sell my shares to my brother and exit the business. And I'll tell you what, it was the scariest thing I've ever done, because since 18, not only a business, but my family business, that was what defined me. That was who I was. I didn't know who I was without that label. And so my lovely husband said to me, you need some time to, find you. He knew how tough I'd had it for the last sort of 3 to 4 years. Don't do anything, don't make any decisions, just kind of chill, basically. So me being me, because I can't chill, I signed up for a nutrition course. And I've always loved cooking. Cooking's my real passion. Love cooking, love food. And I've always been interested in how food fuels us. And I knew that there was a direct relation between what we eat and how healthy we are. And I wanted to know more about that. And it was actually called a weight management course, but I found out it was a weight loss course. When I went to do my portfolio, and you had to have a case study, it was my niece who wanted to actually put weight on and get strength, because she'd had quite a bad accident. She'd torn some muscles in her leg and had partly stopped eating. So she didn't put weight on because she couldn't go to the gym. And then we were building her back up so she could go back to the gym. So really interesting project, great sort of client. But they wouldn't accept it as a client for my portfolio because I wasn't showing that I could encourage a client to lose weight, which is, I can see you shaking your head. It's shocking, isn't it? Absolutely shocking. And so that really pushed me even more into finding out properly about food and nutrition. And I discovered the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and I signed up for their 3-year nutritional therapy course. And for the first year of that course, I didn't learn pretty much anything about nutrition. I learned all about the human body and how it works, how it all interacts. And then the next 2 years were how nutrition, lifestyle, supplementation helps heal, really heal those illnesses. And that was what I was looking for in the first place. And I ended up becoming a nutritional therapist as a result. But yeah, I did the first nutrition course just really as something to do, as a bit of like, oh, this is quite interesting. And the rest is history, as they say. And it's fueled my passion for knowledge. And I love learning about the human body, about the science of nutrition, which is quite a new science. And now I do things like genetic testing, I do functional testing, so stool testing, blood testing. All of these things have kind of come on as add-ons after doing that first, if you like, that first baby course. But really is my passion. I just love it. I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, and I love all of that. And I was going to ask, so because you said you always loved food and all of that kind of stuff. Have you always been really interested in not being healthy, but sort of like that side of it, of, like a lot of what you talk about now is about, getting enough of certain vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all that kind of stuff. Did you always yourself follow a diet like that? Or did that come from you learning more about it? Does that
definitely came. Yeah, no, totally. That really makes sense. And that's a really good question, because someone once asked me what's the biggest change that I've made. And I think because their changes happen slowly, you don't notice them, which is what I encourage with people. So the short answer to that question is no, I didn't. I always liked food, and I kind of knew that, having fish and chips every night for tea wasn't going to do me any good. But I didn't understand any more than that, really. I knew that eating salads was healthier, and cooking from scratch was healthier, that kind of like basic stuff. But no, I had no idea, and it wasn't something that I'd ever kind of researched before. And a lot of my family actually thought I might end up, because I liked cooking, they thought I might end up, becoming a chef or opening a restaurant or a deli or something like that. That was where everyone thought I was going to go. And it was more, I wanted to understand. I knew I didn't want to spend hours a day. I love cooking, but I don't want it to be my job. So it was more about that kind of how it worked. And I'd actually done Slimming World probably in my late 30s, probably about 37, 38. And I did Slimming World. And when I was doing it, I was like, this can't be right. The kind of the logic, how can this be right? I was in the old green and red days, where on a red day you could eat as much protein as you wanted, but you were had to limit your carbs. And then on a green day you could eat as much pasta as you wanted. And I'm like, surely this can't be right, in my head. And I did lose some weight, and it was good. I liked it because it got people cooking. But it was like a cult. I met these women that had been going to Slimming World for like a million years, and it was like pound on, pound off, pound on, pound off. And you're like, how is this like right?
It's so funny, isn't it? I was having a conversation about Slimming World, because honestly, I think find a woman like around our age that hasn't done Slimming World at some point. Yeah. I was having a chat about this, and I didn't do it until I was in my 30s. And I probably shouldn't say all this on the podcast. If anybody wants to know, I'll happily share the stories. But I was talking to she was a personal trainer who also does nutrition-based stuff at the weekend. And we were chatting about Slimming World, and I was saying some of the stories from some of the groups. And honestly, I thought she wanted to keel over. That's what, stuff like that is so focused on. And that's a whole podcast episode in itself.
Yeah.
But is so focused on weight loss and weight loss only. Like, one of my big things from Slimming World is I just remember that if you'd gained weight that week, it was looked down on no matter what, no matter the reason that you might have gained weight. And if you'd lost weight, it was celebrated no matter what. Because I remember the point that I left was when I'd lost quite a few pounds in a week, and everybody was cheering me and whatever. And I was like, no, I've eaten atrociously and I've been sick.
Yes, exactly.
And they were like, no, but you've lost 5 pounds. I was like, no, that's not right.
It's not right. Yeah, totally.
So yeah, and like I said, that is almost a whole thing. Like and we have had many conversations about that, haven't we? But that's what I love about your what you do is, like, you will help people with weight loss if they want to lose weight, but it's not about weight loss. It is all about being healthier and actually unlearning a lot of the stuff that you've learned. So I've learned a lot from you about I've learned a lot from you about sleep. I've learned a lot from you about like low fat foods and all of that kind of stuff. But what I really love, which is obviously what you were just explaining, and anybody that listens to this podcast will know this, I am obsessed with the why. I want to know the why behind things because it helps
Yes.
me do stuff. And I know not everybody's like that, but I really am like that. And there was a few things that you said to me in the past, I'm like, where I've always gone, oh, I don't want to do that. Or I don't, whatever it might be. You've explained something and I've gone, oh, okay. Like, that makes sense, and it will make me do it.
Yeah.
So I love, I love what you do because you are very much about educating people, but also about the whole approach, and it's not all about weight loss, which I think as women, pretty much all the messaging we get around being healthy is around being slim and losing weight and doing all this different stuff, whereas yours is actually, generally, I think weight loss will come with it if you start having a healthier lifestyle, or possibly depending on who you are, but that's not the goal.
No, I always say that weight loss is a happy side effect of eating better, and your body will find its own natural. And I am actually healthier and slimmer now than I ever have been, and I don't watch my weight anymore, and I eat a lot. I do eat a lot. And it is about making those. I'm the same as you, Becky. I want to know why, which is why I knew that kind of like, I knew Slimming World wasn't right. It might help you lose weight, but this isn't right. This is not making me healthier. And always, for me, it's always about like, I want to be able to live as full a life as I possibly can for as long as I can.
Yeah.
And yes, weight, excess weight is directly relative to health, lots of health conditions. So, all major health conditions, if you are overweight, you are more likely to develop them. Things like, modern health conditions like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular health, all of these ones, they are all directly related to weight. But simply losing weight isn't the answer, because if you're not giving your body the things that it needs to make hormones, or then you aren't going to be healthier. You're just going to be skinnier. You're just going to be skinny and unhealthy, which is marginally better than being overweight and unhealthy, but it's still not the solution, is it?
Yeah. And I just find all of that really interesting. And one of the other things that I've always loved about you, which I don't think I've really found anybody else actually that advocates this as much as you do, is that you don't advocate for calorie counting, do you? Because we were having a conversation about this just now, because yesterday I downloaded my Fitness Pal because I was like, right, again, take it seriously. And I've never calorie counted because I find it quite triggering. And it's one of the reasons actually that I loved Slimming World, because it did mean that I could seemingly eat healthier, but I didn't have to calorie count, and I lost weight doing it. But I don't find calorie counting triggering because of weight particularly, because I've never been massive, or I've never been particularly big, but I just get quite obsessive. In fact, I was doing it yesterday. I messaged you this morning, didn't I, to say I've nearly just thrown my phone at the wall trying to figure out how many calories my breakfast was. And I got a friendly but cross message back to say,
definitely stop counting calories.
And even and asking in a little bit about why that is, because even with there's lots of people, and not that they're wrong, but I really respect it, personal trainers, that kind of thing, that will say calorie counting is the way to go because it's calories in, calories out, all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to know, I know this isn't specifically what we're going to talk about, but what your views on that are, because I think lots of people would find that quite interesting if they do find it difficult to calorie count.
So it is a difficult one, because we do burn calories. Our bodies use calories for energy. They do, but it's just not that simple. And so if you consume less calories, your body becomes more calorie efficient. So you will use less calories. There's been some really clever research that was done a while ago about how much. So we have like a basal metabolic rate. So our kind of like how many calories we burn if we did nothing, if we just lay in bed all day. And then how many calories we burn if we move around. And it seems to be that the body seems to use about the same amount of calories. So, like fidgeting, sitting still, getting up and moving around, if we're not getting enough calories, we tend to sit stiller. We don't move as much because our body knows we haven't had that calorie in. So yes, in real simple terms, calories, we burn calories, we consume calories. But what that isn't sort of telling you is all those the tiny little nutrients that we need to make everything that our body does. If you imagine we've got this little chef, I love the food analogy, we've got this little chef in the kitchen and he's got a recipe book and he needs to make hormones and he needs to, make like insulin's a hormone, he needs to make all these different hormones, he needs to make our genes as well. Everything's kind of in this little recipe book. And if he goes to a recipe and someone comes along and says, can I have a bit of serotonin? Becky needs a bit of mood boosting hormone, so let's have some serotonin. And we haven't got all the ingredients to make serotonin, he's not going to be able to make enough, or any maybe. And that isn't calories, that's nutrients and phytonutrients. And so for me, it's instead of thinking about the calories that you're consuming, it's like, what nutrients can I consume? And I genuinely believe, and, we can talk about my programs a bit, but I think my transformation program shows this time and time and time again, is that if you consume a nutrient-dense diet, you first won't be hungry, because I think our body keeps, our brain and our gut keeps demanding food until you've hit those nutrients that it needs. So the chef's there going, I don't have tryptophan, for example, which is part of a protein. So I want some more protein. So I'm going to send Becky out on the hunt for protein. But if then you eat a carb, it hasn't had that tryptophan. So then it's going to, it's going to keep going until it's eating oats, for example, that's got tryptophan in it. That's then you've got enough to make your serotonin. And I think our body, as humans, we are searching out those nutrients to make what we need, which is why we're over consuming. And that's got nothing to do with calories. And we can't, we're not intelligent enough. The communication isn't good enough to say, today I need a bit of extra vitamin C. It just doesn't work like that. So we just keep eating. So the more nutrients we can pack in, the less hungry we are as a result. And so we're probably consuming less calories anyway.
Yeah. So would you, if someone was working for you, because I know you do one-to-one stuff as well, and their goal was weight loss, do you still not get them to track calories?
Never.
See,
never.
Yeah. For everything you're sort of told.
Never. So what I will do sometimes is I always start with the kind of, because either a client is overeating or undereating. Let's use it in real simple terms. They're either overeating or undereating. So if they're undereating, it's about encouraging them to have more to eat, because undereating is as much of a problem. Because again, if they're not consuming the nutrients, they might have, because they're trying to control their diet, they're trying to control their weight. And then other people might be overeating, and it might be that their main meals are good, but then they're snacking a lot in between. So it's about, for me, it's always about getting those 3 meals in a day if we can. Some people it's 2, some people it's 4, just depends on what works for them. But getting those meals really balanced, and then generally it will happen, like I said, as a happy side effect. Like I've got a client with me at the moment, and she's got PCOS and she wants to lose weight because, PCOS does cause weight gain. And we haven't even looked at the weight yet. And it was one of her goals. And I'm like, right, okay, well, let's look at your diet. Let's improve your diet and it will help. And she's lost 9 pounds in 4 weeks. But she's not eating less. She's probably eating more, but she's actually eating better. And she said, I've got more energy. So I'm exercising more. I'm walking more. I'm feeling better. And then I'm eating better. She said, and I have got more energy. And of course, it's all that gamble, isn't it?
Yeah, and I love that. And you're already making me rethink my decision from yesterday. I wanted to get a bit more of an awareness about what I am eating, but I know what my problems are, and it is snacking and all that kind of stuff. You're right, because I ate 3 decent meals yesterday, and as much as I wanted to snack in the evening, I wasn't hungry. Whereas a lot of the time, or I think I'm hungry, but because I'd eaten the right things, I wasn't hungry come the evening, so then I didn't snack.
Exactly. And it's all relative. It depends. Like obviously, if someone's working with me one-to-one, it's different. So it might be that for you, if you're eating healthier and counting calories, I don't have a problem with it. It's the calorie counting on its own that's a problem. Like what I do sometimes with clients is I'll get them to literally, just for 3 or 4 days, I'll get them to photograph everything they're eating. And that sometimes is really kind of highlighting, like I've had a client recently who, she sent me what she was eating, and I realised she just wasn't eating enough protein. I looked at it and I was like, there's no way. She was eating tiny portions. So when she told me what she was eating, it sounded great. when I actually looked at what was on the plate, I was like, well, that's not enough to feed like a small child, let alone a human being. So then it's, how do I get her to eat slightly bigger portions? Or, you know, in the end, we added a protein shake. She just said, I feel sick if I eat too much. So there are ways around it. But yeah, I was tracking what she was eating. I was like kind of on an app going, oh, you know, literally she's only had like 40 grams of protein today. I know that's not enough. But I still didn't actually count the calories. I was more thinking, you know, how much variety she had, and then, you know, how much of nutrients, you know, is she getting enough fiber? And then protein is quite an easy one to track. So I'll look and sort of say, you know, I know that's a key factor, particularly for women as we age, that we want enough protein. I would never advocate just kind of having protein shakes instead of real meals. I'm not that kind of nutritionist, but generally, if you wrap protein up in as part of a meal, you're going to be getting what you need with it as well. You know, I'm not going to go out and get a steak. It'd be like, well, you know, have a steak with some vegetables and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So what do you track for yourself? Do you track anything, like in terms of the amount of protein, etc.? Or do you do you do that with your clients? I suppose you need to with clients to suss out where the
So I only track. I never track anything myself. For the first answer, the first question, literally nothing. I never do. I with clients, there's two things I get them to track: is how much colour they've had in a day. So if they haven't had all the colours of the rainbow, that is one of the things that I will ask them. And the other one is if I'm getting them to send me their pictures of their food, then I might have a look at their protein, but it's only if I think something's wrong. So if I'm looking at it going, oh, this doesn't seem quite right. And then depending on the client, so the one that I was talking about, I knew that she would need a reason for it. It wouldn't be enough for me to just go, you've not got enough. I had to sort of say to her, I don't want you to do it, but I didn't tell her I was doing it, but I have now tracked your protein and I know you're not getting enough protein. So this is how we're going to increase it. And it was that kind of one, but I wouldn't have asked her to track it and then send me the figures. And I've had a client last week who sent me her food pictures for like 4 days, and I didn't bother calculating that because I could see she was eating enough. I just wanted to see what kind of variety. She was getting digestive issues, and we were like, well, what is it that she's eating? It was always later in the day. Was it something she was eating? And it wasn't. It was how she was eating later in the day that was the issue. But all I'm looking for when someone sends me their pictures is, what can I add to that? So they send me, I don't know, like an overnight oats and it's just got some berries on it or something. I'm like, well, that's really lovely, but how about tomorrow you put some chia seeds with it? And it's all about like, what can I add to it? What can I give them that's going to keep them more nourished for longer?
Yeah. And that's one of the things you've really helped me with, because I have very weird things around food, but I don't like a lot of textures of things. And a lot of the stuff that when I first started, I first came into sort of your world and your community and all that kind of stuff, you were saying all this stuff, I was like, oh, I don't like any of that. So like even like nuts and seeds and stuff, I don't really like them, having them by themselves. And like bananas, I've got real issues with. I have very weird things around textures. But what I've loved about working with you and doing things with you, it's like, right, well, I need that in my diet. So how do I get it in there without just eating a banana, for example? And so this morning for breakfast, I had your almond and oat cookies. I've made them for the week with some fruit and whatever, which in it, there's a mashed up, there's banana in it, there's nuts and seeds in it, like there's all different things in there. And that's what I've really loved, is gone, right. Whereas before I'd always, which makes me sound like a child, but I'd always sort of gone, well, I don't like that stuff. It's like, right, okay, well, I need that stuff in my diet. So how am I gonna?
How we found ways, and then you get a cookie. You know what I mean? You're having a cookie for breakfast, and you're like, blow me now. And I think that's probably one of the but I think that's probably one of my skills, really. I think, and that comes from being able to cook and also being married to a really fussy eater, which Becky's super fussy. So I always pull it down and kind of go, right, okay, tell me what it is you don't like about it. Is it the taste? Is it the texture? What is it that you don't like? So then I can work out how to bring that into your diet. So like my husband doesn't like avocado. He doesn't like the texture of avocado. And I get that. So I'll find ways of getting into his diet that he doesn't know. Like he'll have it in a smoothie and he quite likes it in a smoothie. It's not the taste. So it's trying to work out what it is about it you don't like, and then how can you, it's not sneaking it in, it's how can you get it in, and how can you cook things like cauliflower, for example, boiled cauliflower. It's not the most appealing thing, but roasted cauliflower tastes totally different. So it's just about giving someone, I think what I love about you is you'll try stuff. So it's giving you the confidence, giving you something to try that you like. So that then you'll have the confidence to try something that you're less sure about, because I've convinced you previously that I've got you to like something you didn't really like. And so it's like, it's building trust a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, and some of the meals that you have given me through the various different forms that I've worked with you have become staples. And even, like I've said to you before, haven't I? Well, not my daughter yet, but my little boy's eating them, which is amazing. I mean, when my little girl eats them, it will be a full-blown celebration. It's but yeah, he's eating them as well, which is absolutely incredible. Honey garlic chicken is one of our absolute favorites.
Love it.
So I need to get that. We haven't had that for a while, actually. But yeah, lots of, especially like, because I struggled with breakfast, lots of them have become staples. And I like that, because it's like, I've had meal plans where I'm going, no, that's not going to work. But 4 or 5 of the different things that you've given have become regular meals that suits all of us, which is amazing.
And it has to suit you all. That's the whole, and that's one, again, another skill is being able to kind of work it so that perhaps you're cooking something, or you might cook something like, I don't know, a big tray of vegetables that everyone will eat, and like roasted veggies or something. And then it's like, well, you really like salmon, so you can have salmon, and the rest of the family want chicken, so they can have chicken. So it's like, again, making it so that it works for the whole family, so that you're not ending up saying, well, I'm having chicken nuggets for tea every night because I can't be bothered to make 3 different meals. Well, how can we just make those chicken nuggets the healthiest chicken nuggets so that you're getting a better meal?
Yeah. No, and honestly, I said earlier, I don't know how far I've come, but actually, like, compared to what I was 3 years ago when I met you, I've made so many changes. That, like you said, when they're really small over time, you don't necessarily think that much about it, but it's definitely,
Yeah. And I think that goes back, I don't even think I fully answered the question, because that's what we do, Becky, me and you, isn't it? But you said about kind of like, did I eat like that, and did it change when I was learning nutrition? And that's what happened, is each time I was learning something in college, I was kind of like, oh, I'll add that, I'll change that, I'll tweak that. And so I now eat a really healthy diet. I generally do. I mean, I do, fish and chips is one of my favorite meals. I drink wine. I tell everyone this, bread. I had bread for lunch today. It's like, well, bread is not evil. So I do eat real food. But I do look at my diet compared to other people's, and I do realize it's quite different. But it just happens so slowly that is just how I eat now. It wasn't a case of, I can't say it was, in 2017 I changed, my life changed forever. It's like, no, I just did little tiny things until it just became the way I ate.
Yeah. Well, and I think it has to, almost for most people, but definitely for me, it has to be a bit like that, doesn't it? Because if you try and do everything at once,
it's too hard.
then you're not. Yeah, I will give it up before I've started. So I've just started back at PT, and my PT was saying to me, like, this was a few weeks ago, but about the diet, and I was like, no, because if I look at that now, like, I'm going to resent exercising and trying to eat. I will get irritated because I'm tired and I'm, whatever. And a few weeks down the line, I've gone, like this week, I've gone, right, let's start to make some little changes. Let's just be more aware of what I'm eating. So it has to be little steps, I think, because we're all busy people, aren't we?
Exactly. And just being aware is a really good place to start. Just really thinking about what you're actually noticing, what you're putting in your mouth is a brilliant place to start.
Yeah. What would you say within your diet and without, like, outside of the diet, are the biggest things that detriment people's energy and focus? Well, maybe when you say it, it will be obvious, but they might not realize. But what do you think are the biggest things that have a negative effect on our energy and focus?
So I think 2 of the things that we choose for energy and focus are actually one of the worst ones. So sugar and caffeine are the biggest, I think, the biggest energy zappers. Caffeine, because if you rely on it too much, you end up becoming constantly caffeinated and you do not feel the benefit. So caffeine has a half-life. With most of us, you can do a test, you can do a genetic test and know, a bit more how you process caffeine. But generally, for most of the population, it has a half-life of about 6 hours. So if you're having a cup of coffee, a cup of tea at 6 p.m., it's like having half a cup at midnight. So if you think about how long it takes to come out of your system, it's just ridiculous. So we're just topping up those levels. So caffeine for me is use it use it with discretion, use it how it's meant to be used, and keep it in the morning, keep it before lunchtime, 2 p.m. if you absolutely have to, but try and keep caffeine in the morning and moderate how much you have, because you will feel the benefit then. And I know I was a proper coffee addict. And if I have 2 cups of coffee but next to each other, if I'm, when I'm on holiday and stuff, because they don't really do decaf, do they, in Italy and Spain and stuff. And I might have a couple of cups in the morning and I feel jittery. I guess I might have more energy, but it's not good energy. It's a bit manic, and I definitely wouldn't get more work done. And then the other one is sugar. And sugar can come in lots of different forms. So when I say sugar, I also mean processed food as well, like poor quality processed food, because it's about the glucose in our body. It's a glucose spike. So yes, we all know that eating a chocolate bar is going to spike our glucose and therefore our insulin, but we don't necessarily think about that Greg's pasty doing the same thing, and it will do, because it's such a processed food that it just, our body, if you imagine having it in your hand and you scrunch it up, how easily you can kind of turn that to mush. That's what your stomach's doing. So the glucose hit is quite high. It's quite quick. Glucose is our body's preferred source of energy. So when you have a crash, if you're tired, your body will naturally seek out something that's going to spike that glucose level to give you that energy. That's natural. But what happens is because it's happening so fast, insulin's released. So insulin's job is to take excess glucose and store it away in cells for later as fat, by the way, generally around the middle. So that fat around the middle is probably excess sugar. So that's another reason why we don't want excess of it, but it will store it away. But if you don't release it nice and gently and slowly after eating a meal. So if you eat a nice balanced meal, you will release the glucose nice and gently, and your body will release insulin nice and gently, and it will do a lovely job clearing it away. You'll use some, we'll store a bit around. It's quite nice. What happens is if you eat something that's quite sugary or that gets processed very quickly, you get a glucose spike. And then your body will release lots of insulin as a result, too much insulin, because it's not a controlled reaction. And so then it gets all this glucose and pulls it all away and stores it, but it might be a little bit too enthusiastic. So it takes away some of the glucose that you need for energy. So you're back where you started. And you're on this roller coaster of like highs and lows, these peaks and troughs of like, yeah, I've got loads of energy, I'm great. And then, oh God, I'm exhausted. Quick, get me a Haribo. And then you back up again. And it's this whole
thing, isn't it? Like that instant, we're all like, that's why I do that. Like I was smiling away as you were saying all that, because I know caffeine isn't just in coffee and that kind of stuff, but I don't drink hot drinks. So I'm always quite lucky with that. But sugar, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to start tracking what I was eating, to be more aware of like the sugar that I was consuming. And it, like I said to you yesterday was horrifying when I was like, oh God, like it's just, because you can just be a bit blind to it, but sugar is my absolute, like I'm fueled by sugar, and I dread to think how much I consume. But you're right. Like it is that, like, it's the easy, quick fix. You grab for something because you're tired. And it does wake you up a little bit to start with, but it doesn't last very long.
No.
And it always frightens me when I start to eat healthier, how bad my headaches are and how rough I feel, because I'm sugar crashing from the fact that, and it's really hard to try and power through that, because I know what's going to make me feel quickly better is having some sugar, but it's not going to help me long term. And that's what I need to sort of power through. So it's just,
and that's the hard part, isn't it? I think that's the hard part is you have two options. So that's why I do my transformation program, because you're getting a bit of support, but also you're doing it for a longer period of time. So what a lot of people will do, and I'm not saying you're necessarily going to do this, Becky, is but they get up on a Monday morning and they go, right, that's it. I'm going to eat healthy this week. And then by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, they're so exhausted that you just give it all up. So for me, if a client's working on their own and not, not in a program with, or, if I'm sort of doing a talk like this, I'll say, don't give it all up. Just do one thing, take one thing. So, eat a healthier breakfast to start off with, and then maybe you won't have that mid-morning snack, but you won't really notice. Or, say to yourself, I'm not going to eat after 7 p.m. or 8 p.m., whatever time you can do, that I'm going to bring my coffee slightly earlier into the day. So you're just doing like little tiny things so you don't get that crash. Because if you go through the crash, I would say you really need to keep it going. So I think 28 days is the magic number where you've gone long enough that your body has fully recovered from it. And then when you do start to reintroduce perhaps things that you had before, you actually really taste them and go, I don't actually want this. I'm not actually enjoying it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think and I have gone through, I was laughing when you were saying that, because I was like, it's very kind to say, I don't think it might not be you that does this. That's 100% me. I think I got to 4 o'clock yesterday and was like, this is awful. Who wants to live this life? I'm miserable.
Exactly. Who wants to be miserable?
I stuck with it, so now I'm day 2.
Well done.
But I have to have that. Day by day, I almost have to tell myself. And for a very long time, I haven't been able to get past a week of it. So that's my sort of goal at the moment. You're right. Like it is. And I've looked at your transformation program so many times and almost been, and I think I have said this to you before, like almost been a little bit frightened of it because my sugar intake is so high. I was like, oh no, I can't go to that like level. I feel like I need to gradually reduce it down, but I've got to a point where I'm like, are you going to though, or do you just need to do the transformation program? Because it's that, and I guess that's one of the reasons that like I downloaded my Fitness Pal and things like that. And with your transformation program, it's a bit of the accountability, or why I post a lot of stuff on socials, because it's a way of me going, I've said I'm going to do this, and I need to somewhere to show that I'm doing it.
Show that you're doing it, yeah.
But it's a real, I think a big chunk of it is mindset, isn't it? Like it's all in, like getting past that mental blocker.
It's hard to do it on your own, isn't it? It's like cut it. And I also, I honestly, I still think that cutting something out is really hard. If I'm doing, it's all about just one little thing rather than cutting everything out. I think going cold turkey is really tough. That's why it's like, just have one less cup of coffee every day, like one less cup of coffee every day for a week, and then the next week have another one less coffee and another one less coffee the week after, and it's doable. Whereas if you suddenly go from 10 cups a day to 2 cups a day, that's horrible to do. And if you do it slowly. So another thing, those are 2 energy zappers, but I would say water is one of the biggest energy gains that we can get. And even for me, if I get to mid-afternoon and I'm not really concentrating very well, I'm like, well, how much water have I had today? Have I really had enough water? So I like doing things like drink stacking. So I know you don't drink hot drinks, but even if you're having, like I had a client recently who drank a lot of cans of Coke. So I got her to have a can of Coke and a glass of water. And she couldn't have another Coke until she'd finished the water. And that was how we just got her to have more water, because there's only so much you can drink. And you can do it with coffee or tea or whatever. It's kind of like you have one of your caffeinated drinks, whatever that might be, and a glass of water, and you can't have another drink until you finished your water. And you're just naturally increasing your water.
Yeah, well, I was going to say I like that, because you're still drinking the thing you wanted to drink, but you will definitely drink less of it if you're having a water afterwards. And and it's tips like that, and that's what I've always loved about you, because and we wouldn't fit them all into this podcast, but those tips that I've learned from you over the last few years, like really help, and they seem like. They seem so obvious, don't they? But they're not. Like it's just looking for the easy things that you can do, and also that it's not all about cutting everything out, because that doesn't really help.
Doesn't work, does it? We're all experts in our jobs, aren't we? And what I love about you is when I talk to you about social media, you're like, you don't have to post every day, Wendy. It's the same thing. We're all experts at what we do. And when you say it to me, I'm like, oh, it's so obvious. But I get in this like tears. I'm like, oh God, I haven't posted for 2 days. Quick, get some out. And you're like, no, it's the same. It's just a different skill set.
Yeah, I like that actually. Although yours isn't damaging your body, which is probably
yeah, true.
I've written this in mind though, so that's a whole different conversation. One thing I wanted to ask though is, obviously you said like sugar's almost like a false economy for more energy, but it's what we go to. And you said about like have a glass of water or whatever, but what foods will give you more energy? Like if you want to go for some, like if you are lacking energy or feeling unmotivated or unfocused or whatever, are there foods that you'd go to snack on or to include in a meal that do give you more energy, more so than others?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about balance. I really do think so. I always talk about the balanced plate. So really thinking about making sure you've got and my 4 ingredients for a balanced plate are making sure you've got some protein, first and foremost protein, because we harp on about protein, and I know there's been some kind of, I know the Zoe people have done some stuff about protein, saying, oh, we shouldn't need to add protein to our diet and stuff. And I'm not saying add protein, I'm not saying have a protein shake, but just make sure you've got some protein with your meal. So make sure every meal you've got's got protein in it. That is the start of everything. We make everything from protein. So it's like your foundations, it's the important thing. Then some colour, because that's all the like kind of the good stuff, the phytonutrients, the teensy tiny nutrients. So some colour. And I don't mean beige, I mean, red, green, purple. So some colour. Fibre. Not Skittles, yeah, not Skittles. I do a thing sometimes where I have to do a Jaffa Cakes thing, and I'm like, if you had Jaffa Cakes, how could we give protein onto this? And as we get colour, people go orange, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's not actually orange, though, is it? We know that's not orange. So some colour, and then fibre is great for filling you up. So I'm not saying carbohydrate, I'm saying fibre. So you can get fibre from colourful fruits and vegetables, things like broccoli, sprouts, potatoes, rice. All of these things have lots of fibre in them. Nuts and seeds are my answer to everything. So nuts and seeds have loads and loads of fibre in them. So you want something that's really fibrous. Fibre feeds a good bacteria, your good gut bacteria, and it also will help remove toxins from the body as well. So it does a great job. But it's also that, I think often the reason we don't like salads and stuff is because we don't feel full enough. So we'll say, oh, I can have soup, but I need a bread roll with it because I'm not full enough. And I'm like, well, you're obviously not got enough in your soup then. What do we need to add to your soup? So some good fibre, and then finally some healthy fat. And healthy fat is really key for our brain health. Our brain is water and fat, basically. So we need really good quality fats, and nuts and seeds, oily fish if you like it, omega-3 rich foods, olive oil, avocados. All of these things are the things that traditional diets tell you can't eat because they are calorific, because fat is full of calories. And that's my issue with calorie counting, is you will then scrimp on those beautiful things that feed your brain, and they're great for your brain. They really help with things like concentration, with mood, but they also help the energy, basically our body is sending signals around our body all of the time. If you touch something that's hot, the signals aren't in your finger, they're in your brain. So your finger is sending that message up to your brain, and your brain goes, oh, that's hot, move that finger out of the way. So we've got to have, highways. It's like we're like little servers and kind of sending all those signals out. And fat is what helps those signals move around quicker. And as a woman of a certain age, we have all probably done low-fat diets, and we make our sex hormones. We need fat to make our sex hormones. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. So for every woman that's going through perimenopause and having a torrid time of it, is it because we've been limiting fat so much, we don't have the ingredients to make those hormones? It's just making that whole thing even worse.
Yeah, I love all of that. Honestly, I know, well, I said this at the start, didn't I? But I could talk to you all day because I love how passionate you are about it. But genuinely, I genuinely do learn something or get sort of motivated every time I just listen to you speak about it, which is really lovely. And I'm a little bit conscious of time because I was like, oh my God, I've got so many questions I want to ask.
Said we could go on all day, didn't I?
Yeah, really could do. But I love all of that because, and I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to your, I mean, hopefully you'll mention this at the end anyway when I ask where people come find you, but to your membership especially, because it's very low price to get access to so many recipes. And it was funny when I was listening to you talk just then, and this is just for anyone else who's listening, who's like me, when you were like, when we can eat these broccolis and we can eat these, and I was like, I don't want to eat broccoli. I want
to eat Skittles.
But what I love about your membership is there's so many recipes in there that include all of those ingredients, but they're nice, like they're treats. Like, so, you make all the different, I'm trying to think of different examples that are in there, but like, I know, when we went to a mutual friend's barbecue, and you came with these brownies, didn't you? And that was packed full of like, not broccoli, but
Not broccoli, no. Yeah.
yeah, to anybody listening, like, do go check out Wendy's membership, because it is really great.
Thank you.
And there are just a stack of recipes in there. The amount of times, because I make the chocolate salted bites, are a staple.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, and every single time I make one, the girl who does my nails loves them, because I always take her one. Everybody's always asking for the recipe, but it's packed full of a lot of the kind of stuff that you've just been talking about. Again, not broccoli.
Not broccoli. Well, what I try and do is so all of my recipes, I try and make them as simple as they can possibly be.
Yeah.
So often people will say, oh, could I add this to it? Could I add this to it? And I'm like, of course you could. But what I want to do is I don't want to put there's a really nice one that I cook loads, which is it's chicken with apples, and it's got some kale in it. So if you don't like kale, you can leave it out. It's chicken, apple and kale, and it's fairly simple, but it's really quite sweet because it's got apples in it. And I think it's a good way of like kind of encouraging someone to maybe eat kale that they wouldn't normally do. It's like, oh, I'll give it a go. I can always leave it on the side. And then they'll say, oh, I could have had this or that, I could have had broccoli and I'm like, yeah, of course you can. But I just want to make it like really easy, so you don't look at the recipe and go, oh my God, how many ingredients? How long is this going to take me? You're like, oh, I've got that. I can do it. Super easy.
Yeah.
And the membership has also got like meal plans in there as well, but also it's got resources in there as well. So if you're finding that you can't, you're losing your way a little bit, you can kind of go, well, where am I losing my way? And there's some tools if you're into kind of coaching and stuff. There's some coaching tools in there as well, where like I said about the colours of the rainbow tool is in there. So you can just print it off, you can put it on your fridge, you can get everyone involved, the whole family. What I love doing is getting families to do it, where they mark off who's had the colours each day. So the meal planner will let you do that. The colour plan, all it does is colours. There's nothing else she's tracking, just the colours. And it's the aim of everyone in the family to eat all of the colours every day. And at the end of the week, you can add up who's eaten the most colour, and then they get to do something really cool. So, it might be that, if it's for you guys, I don't know, it might be like who gets to choose a film on a Saturday night or something like that. And it's like, and it could be anyone that wins it, but it's just about eating the colour. And it's amazing how much of a difference something that will make to you and to the kids, that they will be like, oh, I haven't had purple today. What can I have that's purple? And then they're trying blueberries or they're trying blackberries because it's the purple one and they want that point on the board.
Yeah. I've done it with the kids before and they really enjoy doing it. So honestly, it's absolutely brilliant. And remind me, because it is really, I want to say cheap, but that makes it sound like, but it's so low cost. It's really accessible. How much is the membership now?
It's £47 a year. And for that, you get all of the recipes. So I'm regularly releasing recipes and stuff like that. But you get money off any group programs that I do. So if you do a group program with me, you almost get that money off. And then if I do little mini challenges, you get those free. So like if I do quite a lot of 3-day gut resets, I probably do them about 4 times. I've got one coming up in December, actually, beginning December, just before Christmas. They're just 3 days. And if you're a member, you get that for free. So if you're not a member, I normally charge I don't charge a lot of money. I charge about £8 for them. But that's all that's a recipe pack and some like instructions, some, like how-tos and some videos and things like that. And I'll do it with you, but you get that for free in the membership. So you kind of get lots of resources and things like the meal planning that we've done. That's a member only benefit. So there's stuff that I do that I will only, even though you've got to pay for it, I'll only, it's for my members, because it's like, well, you've invested in me, so now I'm going to sort of invest sort of back in you. But the community is free, so it's always good. Come over to the community; it's free, and you can kind of see if you like me or not, because nutrition's so personal. You've got to like the person that's talking to you, otherwise you won't take it on board.
Oh, 100%. And that's true of anything as well, isn't it? I say that a lot about the Bossy Socials Club. Is that if you don't like me, you're not going to like Bossy Socials Club. And that's not about me or you. Like, it is a vibe or a how you align, isn't it? But
totally.
But yeah, just quickly before we go on to some of that, because I'm going to ask you to tell people where to find that information.
Cool.
I know we don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but I do just want to mention this because this is one of the most fascinating things I think I learned from you, which sounds really silly when I'm going to say it. So I know we don't have a lot of time to talk about sleep, but obviously I know you're very passionate about good sleep routines as well, and that having a big impact on energy and focus, and then what you eat during the day and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that you taught me before is about when you fall asleep and the hours that you're asleep before midnight and the hours you're asleep afterwards. And I just wondered if you could talk just a little bit about sleep and just talk about, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I know where you're going with this. Yeah. So basically, there's been some fairly new research that started to show that if you actually get to sleep before midnight, you have better. The sleep is more quality. It's more restorative. That pre-midnight sleep. So we didn't know whether or not before. It's just like, get 7 to 8 hours sleep if you can. And this is great and stuff. And this is not great news for people who work shifts and stuff. And we know that people who work shifts has quite a negative impact on your health. But yeah, getting to bed before midnight seems to be the real key. And if you can get to bed a couple of hours before midnight, sleep is one of those things that we don't fully understand. We know we need it. We need it. We will die without sleep. But it's one of those kind of enigma areas where we're still not 100% sure how it works, why we need it so much. We know our body does lots of repair work. Our memory sorts at night as well. So if you're studying and things, or for work and stuff, what your body does is your brain does is it decides what memories it's keeping and what it isn't. But yeah, getting to bed before midnight seems to be that hour or those 2 hours are almost like worth double what you get if you go to bed after. For the benefit, the Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, and they have like a clock, and we work on different organs through the night, and it's fascinating. There's no massive research around it, but if you talk to a client who wakes up in the middle of the night, and it's like a certain time, like I think 2 till 3 is your liver, and I'll be like, oh, when you look down and you kind of work it out, and you're like, oh yeah, that is a liver thing. Or it's a kidney or stuff, and it is fascinating. But yeah, trying to get to bed before midnight seems to be a real key for that actual proper restorative sleep. So that sleep that's going to make you feel more energetic and more lively in the mornings.
Yeah, which I've got to admit, I have not cracked doing it consistently. But when you told me that, that's always in my mind now of the time I'm trying to go to sleep. And like I said, I'm not very good at it, but the times that I've managed to do periods of it, it's like, oh wow, like it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like when you exercise and eat health and you're like, oh, this actually makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But I just wanted you to share that because, like I said, like that blew my mind when you told me that about it's almost worth double the sleep that you get afterwards. But also that I've tried, like I said, I don't do it consistently, but I've tried it and it not being that, and it works.
It works. It's amazing. And the other one that I would say, my other top tip is do not snooze your bloody alarm. Just don't. That's another 10-minute conversation, but just trust me. And I'm sure I've done a video in my free community. So if you come and join the free community, I'll be in the Nutrition Bites, but do not snooze your alarm because it has a negative effect on your energy levels, and that's why you feel so lousy when you get up. You know what time you need to get up. Just set the alarm for that time and get up.
I was just thinking, I snooze my alarm 3 times this morning.
Becky,
you did this conversation, Wendy. I'm going to get back on it. I'm going to get back putting your tips in place. I am really, really conscious of time, and I know we didn't get to speak massively about what you'd learned from the community, but that's okay because that is almost a total different topic. And maybe if people are interested, let me know, and we can have Wendy come back on and we can talk specifically about that in terms of business and socials. But do you want to share where people can find you? I was just thinking there's a couple of other questions that I normally ask. If you can answer these really quick fire.
Okay, God, that's thanks, Beck. That's not my skill set.
I mean, I was going to say I'd happily sit on here all day, but whether people listen for that long. Just on a business front, what things do help you show up in your business, and what tips would you give someone else to do the same? Because you do show up a lot. You show up a lot on your socials. You've got your podcast. You're obviously on this podcast. But I know you well, and I know not like with everybody, that doesn't necessarily come easily. So what have you got any tips for anybody out there?
So I'm a bit like you. Have to commit to it. So I have to. So my podcast is a weekly podcast. I've committed to that, and because I've said I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So that really works for me. So it is almost like in my community, I'll say I'm going to do this on a certain day, and then I can't not do it. Same with working out. I put it in my diary, it's got to be done. So I'm a big one for putting things in the diary, saying I'm going to do it. I do overcommit, so that's not a great one. And also having some structure has really worked for me quite recently. I've got a clinic. I rent a clinic room now 3 days a week, lovely office. But I go to work for 3 days a week, and actually I get so much more done than I did when I worked from home, because I could do stuff anytime. So having really kind of more, not dead firm, like today is a flexi day for me, it's not an office day, but having more focused time where I do work, it really helps. And the last one I would say is I use the Pomodoro method quite a lot as well, and that works really well for me.
Yeah, I like that. I've tried that a few times. But yeah, I like that. And that accountability is so important. Just whether accountability to yourself, like you said, like you put it in your diary, or like I said, I share a lot on socials, or I've got friendship groups I'm in that I share things in, is really important, I think. Because once it's in there, you you don't have to do it, but it definitely makes you more likely to do it.
100%.
And what advice would you go back and give yourself in the early days of running your business? Now, it's an interesting one, because obviously, like you said, you have never had a proper job. You have had but have always sort of been involved in running your own business in some format. So whether it was like right back in the early days of starting out when you were younger, or this business which is solely yours, is there any advice you go back and give yourself, if you could?
Yeah, so I think this one's more and more important is to forget the things that I learned and doing, because the other one was a bricks and mortar business, so I had to be in at a certain time and work for a certain time, and we were very much first in, first out. So the message that I would give that Wendy was, you know, that you don't have to be the one that's working the hardest all of the time, because when you're not there, you're still working. And this Wendy would be I work too hard. So it's like, you don't need to work as hard, but be more structured about it. So be more focused about it, so that you then enjoy your time off, rather than feel like you're constantly chasing your tail. Is, you know, work harder on those days when you're there. I tried to kind of do too much of a hybrid, because I could. So it was like, oh, I'm not going to have fixed times. I'm going to be really flexible about it. And for me, that just didn't work. So it does for some people, it doesn't. I'm much better if I have 8 hours at my desk doing work, and then a day when it's kind of like this, that it's a much more flexible, kind of easier. I'm going out for lunch after and things like that. That really works for me. But doesn't work for everybody, but that's what works for me. And that would be the advice, is find what works for you, and then work to what works for you, because it's your business, so you choose.
Yeah, and I really love that about, you don't have to work so hard, because I think we live in a world that's constantly telling us to hustle, isn't it? So again, if you know, like, that's great if you want to do that and that works for you, but if it doesn't, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. I love that.
And we still get stuff done, don't we? You know, like I know you've been very focused on the family this year, and actually you still get stuff done. Yeah. You've still got a great membership. You've still done all these things, and you've been able to focus on the family. It's changing the priority, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think that structure is so important, because I try to look at, I can't remember, well, I can remember who I heard this from, but they got it from somebody else, but that I put stuff in the diary that is movable but not removable. So I have like these, the set hours in, but like yesterday, I'd just come back from this wellness weekend that I've been on. I was absolutely exhausted, and I was meant to be working because I had stuff in that I need to do. I was exhausted, so I didn't, but I need to be able to, so I moved it. But I didn't remove it from my diary. And I think that really...
But you need to have space to be able to move it, don't you? And that's the problem, is if I had space, I'd cram it with stuff. I'd put stuff into the diary. So now I'm more comfortable with having space, so that then I can catch up on stuff, because invariably other things will happen, because they do, because that's life.
Which I think is why, actually, if you're going to have a day off, it needs to be in the diary. Like, I put it into the diary, it's blocked out 8 hours, I'm off today. And then if I need to move something in there, I move something in there. But I really like that.
Exactly, like we both said, it's a day off today and we're both working because something else has happened that means we have to. But if we hadn't had that space, we wouldn't have been able to, would we?
And that is the freedom, isn't it, of choosing when you do it. So perfect. Where can people come and find you, Wendy? And do, like, one of them that I'm sure you will mention, and we have mentioned throughout this episode, is your free community. So not necessarily your membership, because your free community is amazing. So please tell them about that. But also, if you want to, give a bit of detail about what that free community is actually all about, because it is brilliant and I recommend anybody come join.
Thank you. So I'm on Instagram as Hill Start Nutrition, because that's my business name. So Hill Start Nutrition, and my Facebook page is that. My podcast is Fab Female Nutrition, and that's also the name of my free community on Facebook. So there's only two things you have to remember: Hill Start or Fab Female Nutrition. Those are just the two that I've got. So the Hill Start is a bit more kind of like the more businessy side, whereas I always think the Fab Female Nutrition is a little bit more fun. But my free membership, my free community is just a way for me to reach more people. I want to share this. I want to inspire people to stop calorie counting, to stop trying to do everything, to just make little changes and really feel the benefit of that, because I think that's the key. And if you're given some really honest, I want to cut through all the crap that's on the news and all that excess about everything. There is no should, there is no must, there's no perfection. What works for me might not work for you, but if I can share some advice and give and inspire you to make those changes, and that's what that community is about, is creating that space so that you can ask questions if you want to, I can share, and we're all there together. We're all in this together, aren't we?
And that is on Facebook, and it's completely free, isn't it?
Completely free on Facebook, yeah.
I will link to all of that in the show notes,
Thank
of course.
you.
And I really, really recommend coming and joining the community, if nothing else, because it's filled with wonderful women. You answer questions in there and you learn lots from that, which you give a lot away for free, Wendy. So yeah, I really recommend doing that. And I will also link in the show notes to your membership, because it is only £47 a year. So if you have listened to us and you think it would be helpful, then go and check it out, because I've been in there for 2 years now, maybe 3 years, I don't know, but it is absolutely brilliant. So I really recommend it. Thank you so much for your time today, Wendy. You've been brilliant, and as always, I could have talked to you forever. So yeah, thank you so much.
2 chatterboxes together is not good, is it? But thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Show Up and Be Heard, but please don't go without telling me your name. I genuinely love meeting new people and making new connections. So if you don't already, I'd love it if you'd come find me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook and drop me a message to say hello and let me know what you thought of the episode. The link to all my socials are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a few minutes to give it a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because every one I get really does make me do a little squeal and a big happy dance. Finally, more than anything else, please always remember, realizing that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.